Hi, my name is David Warner Matheson, and I'm in the darkness because I agree with the incredible Peter Kingsley that wisdom is found in darkness. In fact, that it is found deep inside of ourselves, and the ancient myths show us this. And today I would like to talk about an episode described in the life of Solomon in the ancient scriptures, and I believe that this is, like all the other characters and episodes in the ancient scriptures, based on celestial metaphor, but contains profound truths which apply to this very present moment in which we find ourselves. And in the book of 1 Kings, we find this text about Solomon, beginning in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 3. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer upon that altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, "Ask what I shall give thee." And Solomon said, "Thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. And I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this, thy so great a people?" And this speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, "Because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days." And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem, and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. That's the end of that passage. Immediately after this is the episode known as the Judgment of Solomon, where he judges between the two harlots and the two children. They come to him with two children, one dead baby, one living baby. That's called the Judgment of Solomon. But really, this passage that we just heard, that happens immediately before that, in a dream is also should be called the judgment of Solomon. And the reason I say that is we find in other myths an almost identical pattern. There is the judgment of Paris in ancient Greek myth, also recounted in ancient Roman myth. The judgment of Paris is when three goddesses come to the young Paris, the young prince Paris, and it's the three goddesses Hera, the wife of Zeus, the consort of Zeus, and the goddess Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. And they ask Paris to judge between them, and they each offer Paris a different reward. Hera offers power and rulership. Athena offers wisdom and heroism and great reputation. And Aphrodite offers the most beautiful woman in the world. And in this case, Paris chooses the most beautiful woman in the world. And actually, his choice is honored. He is given the most beautiful woman in the world to be his wife. That is the beautiful Helen. But because she's already married, that brings about the Trojan War. There's also a similar myth in the Greek myths where Midas, King Midas, is given a choice. The god Dionysus, in most versions of this story, it's the god Dionysus who comes to Midas and says, "Ask for whatever you want." And Midas, as we know, famously and foolishly chooses riches. He chooses to have everything he touches turn to gold. And that wish is also granted, and like the choice of Paris, it leads to disaster, it leads to catastrophe. In the case of King Midas, he discovers he can't eat gold. Everything he touches turns to gold. His food turns to gold. The water he tries to drink turns to gold. And in some versions of this myth, he even turns his daughter into gold. So his own life, he can't sustain his own life and his own offspring, his own descendants are all ruined by this choice. Now the gods have mercy on Midas and they give him a chance to undo his disastrous choice. But notice, in each of these three parallel myths, the wish is granted, the request is granted. Solomon asks for wisdom. Paris and Midas, they have a choice. They could have asked for wisdom, but Paris asked for the most beautiful woman in the world, and Midas asked for wealth. And notice in this passage in the Bible, when Solomon sees the Lord in a dream, in a vision, God says he's pleased with Solomon's request. Solomon asked for wisdom, specifically wisdom in order to help others, in order to help the people, in order to judge rightly for all of the people. He's been put in a position of responsibility, and he asked for wisdom because he feels he cannot judge wisely on his own without help from the divine realm. And that speech, we're told in the passage, pleased the Lord, and God said, "You didn't ask for long life. You didn't ask for riches." King Midas did ask for riches. Turned out to be a disastrous choice. And you didn't ask for the life of your enemies. Now, all of these myths can be shown, I would argue, to be metaphor. They are celestial metaphor. They're not literal history, but they are teaching us a profound truth, that we can actually go to the divine realm for help. And there are certain things that we can get. You can actually ask for wisdom, as Solomon did. You can ask for riches, as Midas did. You can even ask for the most beautiful woman in the world, as Paris did. And all of those requests were granted by the divine realm. But two of them led to disaster. One of them led to, that was the right choice, and it led to wisdom to help others. Now notice in the Bible passage, you can also ask for power over your enemies. In fact, the passage specifically says the life of your enemies. In other words, you can ask for harm to others. And maybe that wish would have been granted if Solomon asked for it. In all of these cases, the request was actually granted by the divine realm. I believe there's a very powerful truth being illustrated here, and that is that it is possible to use the divine realm for a variety of purposes. But some of those purposes are not the right use of the power of the divine realm. The right use is for wisdom, and it's specifically for wisdom to help others. But you can ask for power over others. You can ask for rulership. You can ask for riches. And you might even be granted those requests. But they might lead to disaster. And I believe what we see actually happening in the world is this truth about the possibility of help from the divine realm has been obscured. This truth has been hidden from us, that we can actually go to the divine realm for these kinds of requests. It's taught in the myths. I just mentioned 3 different myths where this is taught. You can actually use the divine realm and ask and receive assistance from the divine realm. But we've been taught that that's ridiculous, that's ancient primitive thinking or something like that. Not true. You actually see this continuing to go on, but I would argue that the people who are mostly using it are using it to gain power over their enemies, to gain power and riches, and not to gain wisdom to help others necessarily. The proper use is for wisdom to help others, and that is available. But these other uses are also available. And the people who don't want you to know about this power are using this power. We see examples of that. People who want to conquer or oppress or change the paradigm in their favor know about these secrets of the ancients, but they want to take away your knowledge of it. It's like if you don't want other people to know karate, then you're going to say to others, oh, that wax on, wax off, that's just about literal waxing the car. It's not about some powerful esoteric system. Because you don't want anyone else to know karate. If you want to take over the town, you don't want any other karate masters who are standing in your way. So I would argue that these myths show us something very profound. But what these myths are showing, it's not literal, but it's showing us a truth. The myths show us how to connect with the divine realm. And it's actually, the connection is within us. We are connected to the divine realm. As I spoke about in my previous video, the gods are always present. But what we ask for can lead to disaster if we're not being wise about it. It's nothing to trifle with. It's a very deep and profound and actually awe-inspiring teaching that is found in these ancient myths. But it is real and it is true, and someone who wants to use it against you may not want you to know about it. But the gods actually, the divine realm actually stands ready to help, to uplift humanity, as we see in the request of Solomon. Wisdom to help others is available if we know how to listen to the ancient myths.